Brock Purdy sat down for over an hour and 15 minutes, and he said something really interesting about what he can see or not see when he drops back to throw. Plus, he had a message about arm strength for critics. We'll get into the latest Brandon Aiyuk rumors and look at the 49ers win total for 2025. What is good, everybody? Welcome to another Gold Standard podcast on the Gold Standard and the Fans First Sports Network. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. It is Friday. Michelle Majuk is here. Hey, Michelle.
Hey. Excited for it to be Friday. I have my mimosa. I'm going on a trip this weekend. It's going to be a great time.
Do you have your roast of me ready?
Oh, no. I don't have any more roasts of you. You're a wonderful person, Stats.
So, no. Don't start this now. Michelle is super nice to me off the air in the text chain, but face to face on the show, you're brutal. You're mean. You're a mean person.
I gave you all my roasts. I'm not very funny, guys. This is hard.
That's what Michelle found out. It was harder to keep coming up with roasts of me. But I do want to quickly just read one review before we move on. Best podcast. This comes from Romy's mom. Says, my favorite podcast because Stats is not a biased host. Keep doing what you're doing, Rob. Respect the effort and the daily updates, even when sick. Thank you very much. Nopo Niner, 2 stars, says, too much negativity. I used to really enjoy this channel, but lately it has become mostly about how dumb or evil the front office is. Well, tell the front office to stop doing dumb and evil stuff, and maybe you'll get me to sing a different tune, Michelle. Okay, let's get into the Brock Purdy stuff. He sat down with the Built For More podcast. They talked about a whole bunch of different topics, but somebody brought up the question of, hey, Brock, like, how do you see receivers when you drop back to pass? You're not a big guy. The offensive lineman is really big. How do you see wide receivers when you drop back to pass? Here's what Brock said.
So my quarterback coach, Brian Greasy, the last couple of years, he and I talked about that. He played 11 years. His dad's Bob Greasy. But we got talking about how really it's 60-40. You can see about 60% of the time, and the other 40% you really can't. I mean, it doesn't matter how bigger you are.
Right.
I mean, I'm already shorter in stature, yes, but he goes, that's why it's so important when it comes down to knowing coverages, knowing scheme, where our players are supposed to be, how many steps they're breaking, and where the ball like all those things, man, it matters. And that's why, like, guys, you know, if you go to a combine and all those things, you're just throwing on air and yeah, you look all good with a strong arm and fast jumping, all that stuff. But when it comes down to 11 on 11 and you got guys that are a foot taller than you and you can't see, it comes down to the processing. Like before the play, like I know that the safety is probably going to rotate down. It's going to be one high and I got one hitch, no more than that, to rip it where Debo's supposed to be like just inside the hash. And there's a backer that's also got a 40-inch vert that I got to put up. You know, like
that's what's crazy.
All those things.
So there's a lot there to react to, Michelle. First, let's just start with the basic thing that he said, which is 40% of the time, almost half the time, he can't see who he's throwing to. So
I took it as 60-40 that he could see the field. Like he can see 60% of the field at all times.
Oh, I took it as 60% of the time he can see the guys, 40% of the time he can't. You know, so if we're sitting at home going, how the hell did Brock not see that safety? It's because 40% of the time he can't see anybody.
That is wild. And he did. I mean, it's interesting that he mentioned it doesn't matter your height. I feel like it does, right? He's 6'1", and so all the offensive linemen are going to be taller than him. But like Josh Allen, who's sitting at 6'5", he's as tall as most of his offensive linemen, or even taller. So I do think that would matter a little bit. But like he said, so much of it is just like mental, right? Knowing how your players play, knowing the defense, and putting in your work in the film room. We don't know, right? We've never been back there. We don't know what it's normal.
I think that there's a reason why scouts love big, tall quarterbacks, right? 6'4", 6'5", because of that. The taller you are, the easier it is for you to see. For what it's worth, this isn't specific to Brock Purdy. Steve Young talked about it in his book. By the way, Steve Young is an inch taller than Brock Purdy. He talked about when he was becoming a quarterback, Mike Holmgren taught him basically like, dude, you're not going to see everything all the time. You have to just throw it trusting where they're going to be. That's why we rep these things a billion times. Like it's not going to be, oh, there he is. I see that he's open. I drop back. I throw it. You've got to trust the play that we're in, the coverage that the defense is in, and the guys are going to do their job and get where they need to go. So this is not meant to be like a knock on Brock Purdy being short. It's just the reality of, holy crap, playing quarterback is really freaking hard.
And it's crazy when these quarterbacks make a mistake, right? We put it all on them, but it could have been anything. It could have been the offensive player making, like whoever they're targeting, not doing what they were supposed to do, not on the same page. The defender just slightly doing things than they normally do, or whatever they had planned up. Like I don't know how quarterbacks, like the elite ones, do it all the time. In Mahomes and Allen and even like Burrow, like it's truly impressive. But I'd like to hear Purdy talk about this, though, and the processing. And I think he has. I don't think any of us are worried about his brain, right? His processing skills. That's not the concerns whatsoever.
And I thought it was a little interesting, 'cause look, he hears criticism about his arm and that stuff. How he kind of said, like, you see these guys at the combine and the pro day and they're ripping the ball all over the place. He's right, by the way. Like, that arm strength doesn't mean anything if you don't have the other processing stuff to go along with it. But I did think that was a little bit of the pushback from Brock about, like, hey, stop talking about my arm. I do other stuff.
And I remember Zach Wilson's combine or pro day or whatever, like that insane pass out. Those are so stupid. Those in the shorts. If you cannot throw a deep ball down the field accurately in shorts with no defenders, then you can't be an NFL quarterback, right? So it's just silly that they even have them do that. I guess maybe it's to weed out the really, really terrible ones that can't even do that. But I don't see the whole issue with Brock Purdy's arm strength. When I'm watching the games, it's not like I'm like, oh gosh, that ball like is going so slow. Like I think he has very average arm strength. Like I don't think it's below average. I think it's completely fine to be a great quarterback in this league.
Arm strength is like you got to be tall enough to ride the bumper cars. You just got to hit there's a minimum that you have to be above, right? If I'm throwing, if I can only throw it 10 miles an hour, like that ain't going to cut it in the NFL, even if it's the most accurate pass of all time. You've got to meet a minimum threshold. I do think Brock does meet that. Where the arm strength really comes in handy is off-schedule plays that break down when, there's technically a guy open, but you're on the opposite hash and your momentum is going the opposite way to throw, and you need to just rip it, right? That's why Mahomes is so good, because that guy that's open is an actual possibility for Patrick Mahomes, because he has this ridiculous arm to be able to make that throw, whereas somebody else might not be able to do it. But I agree. I think Brock's arm is tall enough to ride the bumper cars. It was just kind of cool to hear him sort of push back against that. And then factor in, like he said, oh, by the way, this linebacker also has a 40-inch vertical. And like, how do you know to throw it high enough to get it over that, but also drop it in the, it's freaking tough, man.
I will say, like, I'm surprised with arm strength, people can't work on it more. It seems like you either have it or don't, but you would just feel like that's just a muscle you have to strengthen up, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you can improve it some. Brock himself has said that he improved it after his final year of college and coming into the NFL because he did a lot of mechanical work. And I think that's also part of the reason that these guys work on their mechanics. Brock goes to Jacksonville every offseason and works with this throwing, guru, and they literally break down like the biomechanics with the scans so he can work to get more torque. Like they do try. But I think it's like anything else, like some people just naturally, for whatever reason, throw a ball harder, throw it further, run faster, jump higher. I think some of it is just God-given.
Yeah, and I really, when I'm watching him, it's not a concern for me. It's not top end, absolutely not. But if you want to see a guy that's concerning arm strength that could never make it, it was Kyle Trask. Go watch him at Florida. Oh my God. And he hasn't even been able to start a game, I don't think, in the NFL. Like that is bad arm strength. Purdy doesn't have bad arm strength. It's just not elite.
Carlos says, you're being disingenuous. He clearly said he talked about this with Greasy and that it's 60-40 for all quarterbacks. I said it wasn't specific to Brock Purdy. I don't know if you didn't hear that part, Carlos, but I did say that. But I do think if you're 6'6", if you're Cam Newton back there, it's a little different than if you're Brock Purdy, who's 6'1". Like there is a difference.
You cannot tell me that Josh Allen and Brock Purdy see the same field. They just do not.
That's
like being at a concert and me and you, because you're a lot taller than I am, you're going to have a much better view of the concert if we're on the floor than I am. It's just that simple. I mean, that's how easy it is.
Let's play the next thing Brock Purdy said. Again, this was all on the Built for More podcast. This one I thought was interesting and not necessarily totally unknown, but it just confirmed to me that, like, last year, the Niners were doomed right from the start.
Last year, man, guys were tired. Like, that season, dude, is no joke. And when you go from July of training and everything all the way to the end of February, and then you really get 5 weeks off or so and you got to report back, and then you're going again. Yep. It's like, dude, guys are tired. They're still beat up. Their bodies, for these guys that are getting older, like, it's not easy. And then last year we just had a lot of things go crazy in a wire, like with injuries and whatnot. But so you can't take things for granted. And so for me going into this year, it's like, how can I just continue to press that gas pedal, not only just for my team, but for myself, be hard on myself, dude. And like, just with the potential that I have watching film and all those things, but also holding everything loosely, like as a faithful man, knowing that I can't control everything in my life to go perfectly. Like, this is God's will, not mine. So
the fact that they were just wiped going into last year, I get it, but also somehow the Chiefs were able to overcome it year after year after year. So there is that part of it, but clearly, like, I just can't help but wonder if they themselves had that thought, like, we can't do it this year.
Yeah, and I think after disappointing, like the disappointment year after year after year, it was just like, we're putting in all this work and we're barely getting any break and we are exhausted and it's not paying off, right? For the Chiefs, it was paying off. So it's much easier to be motivated when it's paying off, but you're doing all this work and putting in all the energy and having, he mentioned like a 5-week break because of how long, I mean, with this extra week of the regular season that pushes back the Super Bowl. And it really does just push the offseason so short for these players. I do get that. And it's probably mentally, they were just drained as well, not just physically, but mentally. And both of those two things together just did not create a good environment for last year.
And like we say, oh, they take a break. They really only take like a very, very short break. George Kittle just posted pictures. He's in Paris on vacation and he's posting pictures from the gym. So like, George Kittle is on vacation in Paris and he's still going to the gym and working out. So like we say break and stuff, but like they really don't take that much time off from where they like do nothing.
Oh yeah. They're always working. I mean, this is why they're professional athletes, right? And it is fair that they have a job and they get paid a lot of money. So they should be keeping their body in shape all year long, right? That's a big job description of being a professional athlete. And that's why some of them fail, like maybe like Devo last year, because not keeping their body in great shape. But so, yeah, they really don't get time off physically at all. I would, mentally, you would like them to have this break to really like put themselves together. But I'm sure last year after losing the Super Bowl, that was very hard to mentally get yourself in a good state, right? And then by the time maybe you got there, it's right time to get back. Like they just didn't have a ton of time to process it all.
And I'm interested to see now, what is it like? What is the vibe, the energy, the stuff when they actually get into camp? How much of a boost, so to speak, will they get from not having to have played into February, from not even making the playoffs, from having time from the end of the regular season all the way off? Do they come into camp and everybody's fired up and ready to go and bouncing around? And do we see that? Because there were reports really early last year like, hey, the energy's not the same, the vibes are off, something not as good. So I'll be interested to see if there's a big difference in that this year.
Yeah, you would hope that they're like excited, right? Because it's been so long since they like got to be on the field and play that hopefully like now it's like, ooh, like we really missed this, instead of last year where it's like, oh my God, we just finished and it was heartbreaking. And now like, are we really going to put this effort in it to feel this way again? Like, I'm sure they're like, it's just going to end the same way. Like I'm going to put in all this work and I'm going to be heartbroken again next year. So I do think it was important with how close they got. Like it's hard to move on from certain players with how close you got. You just want to keep trying and trying again because you're like, well, we're right there. But at the same time, when it's not working and these guys get defeated and then they're all defeated kind of together in that same group, you do have to start to, separate the group. And that's what they have started to do this offseason.
Yeah. And that's why I thought that Kyle Juszczyk move was like a big step in that direction. And then obviously we know what happened. Moonman Ed, YouTube channel member for 11 months. Thank you so much, Ed. We appreciate that. I appreciate your support. Thank you to the support of all our YouTube channel members. If you want to become one, it's less than $3 a month. It really helps support the channel. Moonman Ed says Bob Greasy is a quarterback coach guru and sad they let him go. Well, Brian Greasy is the quarterback coach. Bob Greasy is his father, who was a Hall of Fame quarterback for the Dolphins. Apparently, Brian Greasy didn't want to coach anymore. So it wasn't that the 49ers let him go. He missed his family. He wanted to take a break. He declined a chance to interview for the Jets head coaching spot. So he did not want to do it anymore. So this is not the 49ers letting him go. It's just him changing his mind. Now Mick Lombardi is the Niners quarterback coach. Don't really feel great about that, but that's where we are. The question is, who are the receivers that said quarterbacks are going to be throwing to? We keep waiting for Brandon Aiyuk to possibly get traded. We keep hearing about how much the 49ers want to trade Brandon Aiyuk. Adam Schefter was just talking about this on his podcast. Here's what Schefter said about Aiyuk.
There has not been a whole lot of interest from teams because of the price and because of the injury concerns, because nobody wants to take on the contract when you don't know when the guy is going to be healthy again this season. But from what I understand, Dr. Neil Elitrosh is pleased with his progress. He's coming along. I would think he's ready to play by mid-season. And there might be a team out there that is willing to basically not give up very much to get a great player who's coming off the injury.
So clearly, again, Schefter says you wouldn't have to give up much. Like the Niners are telling people, they are screaming at people to come and get this guy. But I thought that was really interesting, Michelle, because a couple of weeks ago, Matt Barrows said, well, I don't know that we're going to trade. We'll see an Aiyuk trade because he's got to check in with his doctor and see how his knee is. And that might not happen before April 1st. Schefter just confirmed it. That check-in happened with Dr. Neil Elitrosh. Of course it happened because they're trying to trade him before they pay the bonus money. But again, it's the Niners telling people, please come get this guy. We are done.
I think if this happens, then we need to all petition for Jed York to sell the team because clearly he just doesn't have the cash, right, to do it. Like he bought another team in soccer or whatever, right? Soccer.
Yes.
And clearly he overspent and he doesn't have the cash to give these guys, because if you're going to just trade Aiyuk just to trade him, like if you can get an early second round pick or somehow a first round pick, yeah, of course you do that. Right. Because you have the injury, you have the worries about the injuries. They probably should have traded for a first round pick before he was even injured, because I think it would have been worth it. But now, if you're going to just trade him away just to trade him away because you don't want to pay the $20 million bonus when you have a huge wide receiver need, just because you don't want to wait for him to be healthy, like you wanted to pay him last year, but all of a sudden you don't want to pay him. Well, they didn't want to pay him, but like they did pay him, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to at least see how he is when he comes back healthy. And you can't just trade him away for nothing because you don't have your $20 million that you don't want to spend. Like, that's just really, really, really bad ownership if this is what happens.
And I mean, Schefter went on to say literally, like, you would not have to, he said, the exact quote was, you won't have to give up anything at all to trade for Brandon Aiyuk. He said that he gave the two at alls, Michelle. He's telling you the Niners are trading him. That's why I continue to say that he is going to get dealt before April 1st, simply because Jed doesn't want to pay that money. And the owners' meetings take place on Sunday. So they have the league meetings in Florida. All the coaches are there. All the GMs are there. Remember, that's the picture that comes out with the coaches every year, and everybody makes fun of that. That's the meeting that's going to happen on Sunday. They're all there. And I bet you John Lynch's marching orders going into that meeting are, I don't care what you get. I don't care who it goes to, but you are trading Brandon Aiyuk in Florida at these meetings because we're not paying that bonus.
Then, like, what is the hope then for this team? Because they're being so incredibly cheap this offseason. They have added nobody. Like, literally, it's not even like they're just trying to like find good values in free agency, and they're not overspending for the top guys, which I would have been completely fine with, because I don't think overspending in free agency is the way to win. But you need to add good value players, and they've added nobody of worth besides maybe DeMarcus Robinson, which is very sad. And like that's our prime pickup right now. They're being that cheap, and then they're going to trade away their wide receiver 1 for absolutely nothing when they could have got a first round pick for him last year. And all because they're going to be impatient about the injury, I guess. And then also it doesn't even come down to the injury. I don't think it just is the money. And It's just Jed York. I don't think has it at this moment. Like, is it liquefied? That's my question. Like, I think he's run through all of his liquefied money and he doesn't have it.
I think he has it. I think he can get it. If he doesn't have it liquid right now, I don't think he wants to. I literally don't think he wants to do it. He always looks for reasons to save money, and they're going to do it. And so when you ask where they're going to get these players from, Michelle, the draft is the answer, because those are cost controlled players. They have more picks than anybody this year right now, 11 picks in the draft. That is the answer to this question. It's why this draft is so incredibly important. I know it's important every year, but this is like, if your owner is showing you that he's not willing to spend money, then damn, you got to hit it. You have to hit. I mean, they got to get 4-5 players out of this thing.
I mean, trading away Brandon Aiyuk just means they have to draft a wide receiver early.
Yep.
I mean, you can't just go into it with Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings.
Your boy, your favorite.
And I mean, Pearsall maybe takes a huge step forward and we're great, right? And it's all fine and dandy, and you still have George Kittle. So I guess it's not the worst situation ever. And then Christian McCaffrey comes back for those targets as well. But I will say, like, looking at Brandon Aiyuk's, we know like he wasn't great before the injury, right? He wasn't putting up great numbers. It was some drops and stuff like that. They weren't really on the same page, Brock Purdy and Aiyuk. But I did look deeper into Aiyuk on and off the field last year. And when the overall numbers for Brock Purdy aren't that drastic with him on and off the field. One thing that really stood out to me, the air yards per attempt with him on the field, Aiyuk on the field, 10.1 air yards per attempt. With him off the field, 7.8. So massively different offense with Aiyuk on and off the field. Very much shorter offense. So then I went into the downfield pass attempts, the 10 plus air yards, to see the difference in Brock Purdy. And that's where it really shows up. So like, obviously Purdy could still hit those short little throws without Aiyuk, and he can get his numbers that way. But the downfield pass attempts with Aiyuk on the field, Purdy had 112 passer rating on downfield pass attempts last year. With him off the field last year, 90. So it dropped by 22 points, his passer rating. His touchdown interception rate was 6-3, 6 touchdowns to 3 interceptions with him on the field, 3 touchdowns to 4 interceptions downfield with him off the field. The separation rate was much lower with him off the field. The tight window throws, the percentage of tight window throws that Purdy had to throw downfield went up significantly with Aiyuk off the field. It was 24% with him on the field. 33% of the time it was a tight window throw down the field without Aiyuk. So that's where we saw the impact of Aiyuk not being there. And I mean, I just wouldn't give up on him yet.
And that, by the way, is when everyone, with Aiyuk not at his best, right? When he was still working his way into shape. Everybody says, oh, he sucked last year. He was terrible. Those are the numbers just from last year when people said he wasn't even at his best. So imagine the improvement that would be there if he was at his best. Again, Adam Schefter said in that clip that we played that he's not expected back till around midseason. He tore his ACL and his MCL in week 7 last year. So, that's about a year is generally what it is. Realistically, he's probably not going to be, his old self until 2026, unfortunately, just given the nature of the injury and the recovery. But there is a clear need for him on this team next year and beyond. There was actually a clip of Brock Purdy. I didn't grab it. He was talking about Ricky Pearsall, and he was like, apparently in practice, Ricky Pearsall is up in Brock's face telling him like, hey, you can trust me here. I'm going to take 3 steps in this route. I'm going to stop. I'm going to turn it, and you could throw it to me. And don't worry about it. Like, he is apparently like all about like, the details and the nitty gritty of the game. And Brock was like, it drives me crazy, but I love it because that's exactly what I want. But I'm not going to lie. Like, I heard that and I'm looking for reasons to be excited about Ricky Pearsall. And I was like, all right, check. I'll just file that one away.
That's a check. I mean, you got to love that. You love that so much. And then also like, this is why they need the Brock Purdy deal done though, too, because if maybe Purdy's willing to go do the, practices and throws and all that with his playmakers before the contract, but most likely not, right? So get this contract done because they really need to work on this connection. They didn't have the summer last year. They didn't have half of the year last year. they need to really build this chemistry between the two, especially if Pearsall's going to be the wide receiver 1, either way, right? If they trade Aiyuk or not, at least for the first half of the season, he should be the wide receiver 1. He should be able to take over Juwan Jennings' role, right, as the top target. So they need to be working on this chemistry. And longer they take to get this Purdy deal done, the less time they have to do that.
Well, yes, unless, and this is the big question, Brock could just show up and do everything, even without the contract. Now, I'm not saying he should, but like Brandon
Aiyuk,
Aiyuk,
but he's not going to.
Well, that's the question. Brandon Aiyuk stayed away. Debo stayed away. Like even Christian McCaffrey for the voluntary part stayed away for the 1 or 2 days it took before he got his new deal. If Brock doesn't do that, if Brock says, hey, I'm going to show up, I'm the quarterback, I'm going to do all that stuff, then the fact that he doesn't have the contract becomes less of a deal, right? Because we only think that it affected these guys because it affected their workouts and their offseason and what they participated in. If Brock shows up, it's not really as big a deal.
I don't think he's going to show up. His agent better tell him not to show up, because that's going to force the 49ers to actually move. If he shows up, what's going to force them to do anything? They could just take the time or not give him one at all, right? They're going to not showing up. They need their quarterback. I mean, you can't do like pretty much anything without your starting quarterback. And that's going to be so important. So that's how he can kind of push them to get this done quicker, to pay him more. If he shows up, then that's just really bad negotiating tactic.
They asked him, would you hold out if you didn't have a deal done by the phase 1 of OTAs, which is when he said he wanted it done. And he said, oh, I don't really know, is what he said. Yeah, that would be giving up a significant amount of your leverage if you did that. And I really don't think he wants to do that. I think he wants to just like get this thing done and just be all about football. But if it's not done, I'm sure his agent, Kyle Strongen's going to say, dude, you can't show up. You got to stay away. That's our leverage. That's when we can really put the screws. Because you know how it's going to go, Michelle. The first day he's not there for something, all the fans are going to descend on the 49ers and crush them. And I'll be leading that charge.
It's just so crazy. It's not done. They have the exact, just give them the Jordan Love contract. I mean, it's so easy.
I've heard rumblings that it is close to done, but close to done and done are two very different things, as we've all learned in business and in life. Close to done is you might as well be 10 miles from done. If it ain't done, it ain't done. And we continue to wait. We continue to see. I don't know what the holdup would be. I mean, I guess you're scouting for the draft, but clearly I think you can do more than one thing at the same time. And again, they're not starting from ground zero in these talks. So we'll sit and wait. But
again, they had an extra month to scout for the draft than these playoff teams. So
yeah, I'm very interested to see what happens Sunday, Michelle, because Kyle's going to speak. John Lynch is going to speak. Jed York may speak. I would love it. First question to Kyle first question to Jed is, Jed, what the fuck? Like that's literally my first question. Like, Jed, why'd you turn off the money, man? That would be my first question.
Can we see your bank account right now, please?
And also, Kyle, how do you feel about getting publicly neutered? That has to be the first question to Kyle Shanahan. It has to be. Kyle, how do you feel about the team essentially blaming you for all their bad contracts that they don't like? I mean, please, Matt Barrows, I am begging you to ask that question to Kyle Shanahan.
I need someone to ask Robert Saleh, would you have taken this job knowing what this defense was going to look like after free agency?
So I don't know if Saleh will be there, but that is a great question I would love to hear. Or how about Robert Saleh? Have you been told if Kyle gets fired that you're going to be the head coach? He says, no way he's going to answer that one, but I mean, we're all thinking it.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Heineman says, Jed, how much do you need to save for your soccer hobby? Or Jed, do you think it's fair to 49ers fans that you own these two other teams and potentially financially what happens with them impacts the Niners?
Yes, that should be a question. Absolutely. He should have to answer that. That needs to be a question for Jed York. Like, why? And also, like, make him explain fully why he needs to trade away Brandon Aiyuk.
Or just, if you were really that against these contracts, why did you say yes? Just because Kyle Shanahan wanted it? Like, dude, you're the owner. It's your fault.
Honestly, it makes you look pathetic that you're like, well, I only did it because Shanahan ran up to my office and stopped me. Like, ew, like grow a pair.
Yeah.
Like, if you didn't want to do it, grow a pair. Like, you wanted to do it at the time. You had the money at the time, I think. Like, I really do think there's something here with the other teams he bought. And I think it's going worse than he thought. And it's messing with his bank account and messing with his money. He doesn't like that. And it's going to mess with the 49ers team. It's going to bring them down. It's going to burn them. And us fans are going to be screwed.
I almost want maybe the plan with Aiyuk was like, all right, we'll give him this contract. And then if we don't win the Super Bowl, we'll just trade him. The fact that he got hurt and it was such a serious and a long-term injury mucked up the plan. Like, maybe it was their plan all along to just trade Brandon Aiyuk this offseason. They signed him to that contract to get him in camp and whatever. I don't know. None of it makes any damn sense. Any way you look at it, none of it makes any sense. It's very, very frustrating. But nonetheless, we will wait. But this weekend is going to be a lot of fun because we're going to get to, I always like when people from the team speak. I always think we find out information, either what they say, either what they don't say, how they say certain things. I really think we're going to find out some cool stuff, and we may have an instant reaction show on Sunday when Brandon Aiyuk gets traded.
He better not get traded. I swear to God. You better not.
I'll get an angry, if you find out first, I'll just get an angry text from you. Like,
listen, if it's an early second round pick, fine. But if it's anything that they just gave it away, I'm going to be,
it's going to be.
And listen, if Jed York burns his team down and my Steelers sign Aaron Rodgers, what do I have to live for? All right.
Yeah, that's a rough fall for you.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to have to be a Bills fan.
I think it would be, the Aiyuk deal would be like in order to get a team to give up anything of value, maybe it's like a 4th round pick, but the Niners give up Aiyuk in a 5th or something like that. I could maybe see that. Who the hell knows? But I think it's clear that the Niners are just flat out done with him. They're just done with him. And we will see what eventually happens. All that said, and I know it sounds like a downer. You and I were talking. We did our Bleacher Report show this week. And despite all this negativity, the 49ers have the 2nd highest projected win total, according to ESPN Bet, of anybody in the entire NFL. It's shocking.
Of the NFC.
No, in the NFL. They have, here, I'll throw it up on the screen because I still have the graphic.
Tied for 5th, yeah.
But, what I'm saying is, like, you've got the Eagles, Chiefs, Ravens, and Bills at 11.5. And the next highest win total is the 49ers in that group of teams at 10.5. Commanders, Niners, Chargers, Lions, and Bengals all at 10.5. So despite all of the stuff we have been saying, Michelle, Vegas, who's kind of good at this stuff, thinks the Niners are going to have a good year.
Yeah, they really expect them to bounce back because looking at all the teams and their 2025 projection win total compared to their 2024 win total, the 49ers have the highest win difference, according of a jump up, right? For next year at 4.5 games, they have them jumping up. There is only 2 other teams with even a 3.5 jump. That's the Bears and the Patriots. And then a couple teams at 2.5, but most are around 1.5, 0, or minus. So this 4.5 jump is absolutely massive that Vegas is projecting. Now, maybe they're trying to get people to bet on the 49ers, right? Or take the, I don't know what their game plan is here, but I feel like they have that big name where they think people will like, ooh, yeah, we'll bet on the 49ers. But the 10.5 that's a bold choice by them.
Methyl Ethel says, don't forget, I love that username, by the way. Methyl Ethel says, don't forget that lines are also made based on what/who the books think will bet on in addition to the actual numbers. Yeah.
Yes.
The books are trying to come up with a number that'll get an equal number of people to bet above and below. That's why they do the 0.5. Like, they want an equal number of bets on both sides so that no matter what happens, they're fine.
I'm just surprised by it because I can't imagine too many people wanting to bet over that, right? If they did 9.5, I could see a lot of people doing both, right? Because they were at 6 and 10 last year. Okay, well, if you don't expect them to be better, then there's going to be a bunch of people that are going to bet the under, right? But there's going to be many people who believe the 49ers can win 10 games. Like 10 games just seems so much easier than 11. So I'm shocked their line's not 9.5 because I don't envision too many people taking the over on 10.5 for the 49ers.
That's the crazy thing is that, like, I could say the Niners are going to win 10 games and still bet the under and win some money. But Michelle, when you look at their opponents for 2025, as I have them up on the screen, I mean, you got the division games. Here are the home games. Falcons, Panthers, Jags, Titans, Bears. Now, the Bears game may be tougher than we think, but like, I ain't shaking in my boots at any of those home games. And then the road games are New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Houston, Indianapolis, New York, the Giants, and Cleveland. Again, not really super scary. Now, I think one of those road games, I think it's maybe the Colts, might end up being an international game. So I don't know what does that make it easier or harder? I don't know. But like this schedule, you look at the schedule and you're like, yeah, I could see why it's at 10.5.
You can, and you can go through it though. And even so, when I first saw this and I, went through the schedule, I'm like, ooh, like there is a really easy path to it. But then at the same time, there's not, right? Because yes, the Falcons, the Panthers, the Jaguars, I'm counting these on my hands right now, the Titans, the Browns, the Colts, the Saints, the Giants. That's 8 games right there, right? That should be, they should be favored in all of those. And I didn't even include the Bears, which are probably, we'll see where they're at in the schedule, right? And how they are with Ben Johnson and where Caleb Williams takes that next step. But just those games right there, not including the Bears, is 8 games. But that means they have to win all of them, right? They would have to win all of them. We know they're not going to do that. Like some of these teams are going to pull through and shock, and who knows, the Falcons could be better too. So that means, like, let's say they win 6 of those 8. They still have to win 5 more games on top of that. Now, maybe they pull through on both the Cardinals games and one of the Rams and one of the Seahawks, but it's actually kind of hard to pull out 11 wins.
If you can split the division games and just go 3-3 in your division,
and then they would have to win all those other 8 games. That still would only get them to 11 exactly.
To hit the over, you're saying.
Yeah. Yes.
And I know I could hear the sound from Cleveland Browns fans are being like, hello, your Super Bowl team in 2023 lost to the Cleveland Browns. That is a thing that happened.
Better teams lose to worse teams all the time, right?
Which is true. My response to that would be yes, but the crappy 49ers in 2024 beat the Buccaneers. So that would kind of even out. But the schedule opportunity is there for them. Like, there's no reason why they can't get back to the playoffs, why they shouldn't get back to the playoffs, even if they trade Brandon Aiyuk, damn it. It's still there. You have to get
not
back.
with the defense right now, though.
Well, it's not great.
They're not like Jed York is. I would feel completely fine if Jed York all of a sudden wouldn't spend a dime. Like, he's being so drastically different. It's like, yes, maybe you're spending too much and you're frustrated with how much money you're giving away and how much you've been, impacted by Kyle Shanahan's emotions. And that has frustrated you, right? Like, he's making too many decisions emotionally. You've had his back, but you can't have it anymore because you're just wasting your money. I get that. I get saving a little bit, right? And not overspending, but he made it. It's like he's either broke or he's being so petty against Kyle Shanahan that he won't spend a dime. Like, he's not spending a dime. Like, he's not spending anything. That it's like from one extreme to the other. And I just don't think you can be a winning team if you won't, or you're not willing to spend literally anything. And you're willing to give up your wide receiver 1 just because you don't want to give him the roster bonus.
I just don't know how if the problem is all the contracts the 49ers have paid out, then why aren't you blaming the guy that negotiates the contracts? Parag Marate has escaped all criticism from Jed York. That is the part that doesn't sit well with me. Modelo Time 1999 on Twitch says Vegas has been watching the special teams juggernaut the 49ers are building. That's true, because apparently all their signings are good special teams players. Mr. J says the international game is Colts Broncos, and that the NFL announced that. I didn't see that. I apologize if that's true. I'm going to try and look it up real quick.
I should know, but I don't. I'm not even going to pretend to lie.
Colts opponent revealed for the game. So apparently it has been revealed, and it is the Broncos. So apologize for that. That's good.
When was it revealed?
I don't know. I already closed the window. I hate when the 49ers play international games. I don't like all the travel that goes along with it. I don't ever want them to play international games. I want their routine to just be the same.
They already travel enough in the States because of their location and where the teams are all located. They already travel plenty enough. They do not need more travel. Let's see here. Their away games. They have to travel to Cleveland. They have to travel to Houston, which I'll be trying to get to that game.
Yeah, you
they have to travel to Indy. They have to travel to New York. My goodness.
Yeah,
they have to travel to Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just every year it's going to be a lot of travel because it's just where the teams are all located. There's just too many on the East Coast.
And the sequence of that too, like What if they have to fly Tampa, right? That's a super long flight for them all the way across the country. Then if they have a home game after that, so that means they got to fly back to the West Coast. And then if they have to play Houston or Indy the week after that, then they got to fly all the way back cross country again. Like, that's why I say the sequence of these games matters. That's why I get so excited when the schedule comes out in May, because that does affect teams. Now, it's not an excuse. You can't just say, well, they can't possibly win now, but it does matter. And I'm sure the Niners have put in a request. A lot of times they do, where it's like, hey, you've got us, on the East a lot. Can you put some of those back to back so that maybe we could stay out East so it's not as bad? We'll see what the schedule ultimately reveals. And I think the bye week too is going to be critical, especially with all that travel. So we'll have to see. But again, I'm counting the days in May. I get all excited when it comes out.
Now, Houston, if I can go to the game, are you going to come?
No. You
Why?
want me to fly to Houston for the game?
Yeah.
Just
Why?
because you're going to be there.
Yeah. Why not?
I don't know. Time, money.
You get to hang out with me.
I know. And that is, trust me, that is a bonus. I'm actually going on vacation to Chicago next month, right? Which is exactly when Brock Purdy is going to sign his deal.
Look at you doing something.
Yeah, look at that. I'm going. A couple friends of ours are going to go with us. It's going to be a big thing. We got tickets to Wrigley. We're going to go to see the Cubs play. Got some things happening. Don't you worry.
Wow.
I don't
Look
always
at
go
you.
in my basement.
Look at you with a life.
And this was just a happy accident. Vish Kumaran, who I host with on Mondays, lives in Chicago. So he and I are going to meet up, finally get to be in the same room with Vish. Finally met up with you. I met up with Steph Sanchez a couple years ago at Levi's. So slowly but surely, I will have met with everyone that actually works on the network.
Stats, I actually wanted to ask you something. Levin is a big Purdue fan, right?
He is.
So tonight, Purdue and Houston play against each other. I want you to come up with a bet for me and him.
Ooh, okay. Homework assignment.
Yeah.
A bet with Levin. I've got a bet with Jason Aponte about Aiyuk getting traded. He doesn't think he's going to get traded. I think he is. So if I lose that, then I got to wear a Yankee hat on the show, which I hate the Yankees with a fiery passion. So that would not be ideal. But all right, I'll have to come up with it. And I got to come up with this bet pretty quick for you and Levin.
They play tonight. Yeah.
Yeah. Wedge Antilli says, I'm taking the family to Houston. I assume that's for the Texans game. That's going to be an interesting game because D'Amico obviously knows the Niners well. I was really disappointed with how Houston's season ended. They just looked oh God. CJ Stroud did not look like he looked his rookie year. I know they've made some changes on the offensive line. I don't know. I feel like the arrow's pointing down on Houston.
I think Stroud looked fine. I think the offensive line was just so incredibly bad. And Bobby Slowick got overhyped after his first year. And his offensive scheme wasn't that great. That's why he got fired. I think Stroud would be fine, but the offensive line is still in shambles. They traded away Laramie Tunsil. And then they don't really have wide receivers outside of Nico Collins because Stephon Diggs left, plus, tore his ACL. And then Tank Dell is not going to come back this year because that injury was disgusting. So they have a lot of needs. I guess they have Christian Kirk now. But yeah, that Houston game is definitely winnable. I'm trying to hope I definitely go. I'm hoping I definitely go. We'll see what time of the day they play and if I can get it off. But yeah, if anyone's going to the Texans 49ers game, let me know. Maybe we can hook up for a tailgate.
Ooh, I know you're always down for that. Let's see. Oh, I want to read one more review before we go. As we always say, thank you for the reviews. We appreciate your 5-star reviews on Apple Pods. Help us climb the ranks. I really appreciate it. Nick4983 says, Rob is the GOAT, 5 stars. Watching Rob grow his own podcast network inspired me to start my own podcast about movies. He has a great program and vision. Wish I could shadow him for a week to learn how he creates his success. For sure, a part of it is he assembled a killer team and is not afraid to disagree, and that creates great content. Hearing him give credit to Michelle for encouraging him to believe in himself shows you his integrity. Michelle, thanks for busting his chops every Friday and calling him a baby when it's called for.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you. And I've said that without you and Levin, this whole thing would not exist. And I will always be forever grateful for that. As opposed to shadowing me for a week, Nick, I promise you it's not as impressive as you think. You will be very bored very quickly. It's a lot of listening to press conferences and podcasts and just generally losing my mind. But I do appreciate the kind words. So thank you very much for that. Michelle, I always ask you on Friday, what do you have cooking? What do you have going on?
In about an hour, I'm headed to Austin
Mm.
and gonna have a fun date night with my wife in Austin tonight. And then tomorrow we're going to it's a live podcast basically, but we're going to a crime junkie show. If anyone likes
Ooh.
true crime podcast, crime junkie show tomorrow night in Austin.
I'm going to have a lot of questions for you about that because I really want to do a live podcast. I want to go, and I always wanted to do it at Levi's. I don't know if the Niners would help me with that. Probably not, since I always bash them. But I really want to do a live podcast somewhere. So I need to learn, sort of the setup and the ins and outs of all that. So I'm prepared to answer a lot of questions.
Yeah, I've never been to one before, so I'm really excited.
All right. Well, enjoy your Friday, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. Go Niners. Let's hope Brandon Aiyuk is still on the team. And hopefully we don't talk to you again until Monday, because if that's the case, that means he hasn't been traded.
Or Brock Purdy got his deal. So hopefully we talk to you. You know, it could go either way.
By the way, if you want more from me, I'm actually going to be hosting ESPN Radio nationally tomorrow night, 8 p.m. to midnight Eastern. So what's that? 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific time, national radio show. I'll be hosting. We'll talk NCAA tournament. We'll talk a little NBA, probably some NFL draft as well. So just go to the ESPN app or SiriusXM Channel 80, wherever. But I will be on the air. So looking forward to that tomorrow, too.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Michelle. Thank you as always.
Of course. Bye, y'all.